I never imagined that my own son would be the one to make me doubt my sanity. But that's exactly what happened. It started on a quiet Tuesday morning. I remember standing in the kitchen, staring at the coffee machine that had somehow moved from one counter to the other. I frowned, convinced I had placed it near the sink the previous night. I tried to laugh it off, telling myself it must have been the tiredness. But deep inside, something unsettled me. Over the next few days, things kept shifting around the house. Small things at first. My reading glasses. My wallet. The TV remote. Always disappearing from one place and showing up somewhere else. Sometimes in the most unlikely corners. The laundry basket, the hall closet, once even inside the oven. I began to question myself. Am I forgetting things? Is age finally catching up with me? Am I losing my mind? The thought bothered me more than I wanted to admit. My son, Ethan, seemed sympathetic. He would pat my shoulder, offer to help me look for whatever was missing, and give me that soft, worried look. "Dad, maybe you're overworking," he'd say. "You should rest more." Rest. I tried. But the more I rested, the more things went missing. The moment that broke me was when my truck keys disappeared the morning of an important meeting. I tore the house apart. I accused myself for misplacing them. I even stood in the living room and whispered to the empty walls, "What's wrong with me?" That night, I sat alone in the dark hallway and made a decision. A quiet decision. A patient decision. If something was happening in my home, I would find out. And I would do it without saying a single word. My name is David Miller, a 52-year-old carpenter from a small suburb near Denver. I've lived in the same two-story house for more than 25 years. My wife, Linda, passed away 5 years ago after a long illness. Since then, it's been just me and my son. Ethan is 24. Smart, sharp, ambitious. He works in tech support and spends most of his time on his phone or behind his computer screen. We were never the closest pair, but we shared respect, or at least, I thought we did. Life after Linda hasn't been easy. Grief doesn't exactly pack its bags and leave. But I kept going. I worked. I cooked. I fixed things around the house. I lived simply. Then the strange things started. At first, I blamed myself. Stress. Fatigue. Maybe even grief coming back in ways I didn't understand. But the more items that disappeared, the more nervous I became. And the more nervous I became, the more helpless I felt. I knew I couldn't talk about it openly. If this was just in my head, I didn't want to burden Ethan. And if it wasn't in my head, well, that was an even scarier thought. So one evening after Ethan left to hang out with friends, I drove to a small electronics store on the edge of town. I bought a tiny security camera the size of my thumb. A quiet little thing. No flashing lights. No sound. I installed it above the living room bookshelf, pointing toward the hallway and the entrance to my bedroom. I didn't tell anyone. I just waited. The next few days felt heavier. Like each second carried its own weight. And the house, it kept playing tricks on me. The thermostat suddenly set itself to freezing temperatures while I slept. My work boots were moved from the mudroom to the back porch. My tools were rearranged in the garage. Even my medications, the ones I organized carefully every Sunday, were mixed up. Every time something happened, Ethan reacted with what looked like genuine concern. He'd say, "Dad, we should probably get you checked out. Maybe it's stress. Maybe it's age. Do you want me to take over some things around the house?" His voice was always gentle. Too gentle, in a way that didn't sit right with me. One afternoon, I walked into the kitchen and found the cabinet doors open. All of them. Every single one. Wide like someone had gone through them in a hurry. I stood there silently. I didn't say a word when Ethan came home. I simply closed each cabinet while he watched from the doorway with a strange expression, something between worry and satisfaction. That night, I sat in my bedroom and stared at my hands. They were trembling. Not from fear, but from realization. Something was wrong. And it wasn't me. I tried to keep myself calm, breathing slow and steady. I reminded myself of everything I'd learned over the years. When something feels off, don't act loud, act patient. 3 days after installing the camera, I finally checked the footage. I remember sitting in my workshop, laptop open, as the first clip loaded. My breathing slowed. My heart sat heavy in my chest. There he was. My son. Walking around the house in the middle of the night. Opening cabinets. Moving books. Hiding my keys in the laundry basket. Switching the positions of the chairs. Rearranging the thermostat. Laughing under his breath. Laughing. I watched him enter my bedroom. He stood over my sleeping body, watching me for a few moments, then quietly placing my glasses under the bed. A coldness spread inside me. Not anger. Not rage. Just a deep, quiet sorrow. But the worst part, the part that cut through me, was the expression on his face. Not concern. Not mischief. Satisfaction. Almost triumph. He wanted me to think I was losing my mind. He wanted me to break. But I had lived long enough to know something he didn't. When someone pushes you silently, you don't push back. You step aside. And you let them walk into their own mess. Quiet justice takes time. And that's what I chose. I didn't confront Ethan. Not then. Not the next morning. Not the next evening. I carried on, calm, steady, observant. Inside, I had already made my plan. It began with a visit to a lawyer friend of mine, Michael Turner. I didn't tell him everything. Just enough for him to understand I needed to protect myself, financially and legally. He advised me quietly, document everything. Stay calm. And don't accuse him until you're ready. So that's what I did. For the next 2 weeks, I let Ethan continue his little game. He moved things. He hid things. He whispered to me, "Dad, maybe we should see someone." But I smiled, gentle and unbothered. Maybe, I'd say. Let's give it time. Meanwhile, I bought 2 more hidden cameras, one in the hallway, one facing the garage. All of them recorded every movement he made. And then, something changed. Ethan escalated. One evening, as I was folding laundry, I heard him speaking on a phone call in his room. His door was cracked open just enough for his voice to slip through. He said, "Yeah, once he's declared unstable, everything falls to me. The house, the insurance, everything. He won't fight it. He barely remembers where he puts his keys." My breath caught. Not from shock, I had suspected something darker. But hearing my own son talk about me like that, it settled into my chest like a stone. He wasn't doing this for fun. He was doing it for gain. He wanted control. He wanted the house. He wanted my life to collapse so he could benefit. That night, I sat outside on the porch, watching the streetlights glow. And I made my final decision. Revenge comes in many forms. Some people use anger. Some use confrontation. But I've learned that the most powerful revenge is truth revealed calmly, at the right moment, when the person causing harm believes they've already won. I waited until the weekend. Saturday morning, I invited Ethan to breakfast. Pancakes, bacon, the usual. He came downstairs looking tired, or maybe guilty. "Dad," he said, "your wallet ended up in the shed. I found it last night. I'm worried about you." I nodded slowly. "I know, son," I whispered. "I've been worried too." His eyes lit up, not with concern, but with victory. He thought he had me exactly where he wanted. That's when I opened my laptop and pressed play. On the screen, he appeared in the hallway at 2:17 a.m., holding my car keys and stuffing them into a toolbox. The footage switched to another angle showing him moving furniture. Another clip showed him opening my pill drawer, mixing the bottles around. He froze. His face drained of color. I didn't shout. I didn't accuse. I spoke with the calm voice of a man who finally sees the truth. Ethan, I said quietly, I don't know why you're doing this. But I know what you've done. He tried to speak, but no words came out. The silence between us felt heavier than any confrontation could have been. After showing him the footage, I didn't threaten him. I didn't punish him. I simply stood up, took a breath and said, "We're going to talk to someone. A professional. You need help." He tried to argue, but the evidence sat between us like a wall. There was nothing he could say, nothing he could twist or manipulate. We visited a family therapist the following Monday. I let Ethan explain himself. I stayed quiet, letting the truth speak louder than any words of mine could. He admitted everything, the manipulation, the staged confusion, the intention behind it. Not out of guilt, but because he realized it was useless to deny it. The therapist's expression was carefully neutral, but I saw the concern in her eyes. It turned out Ethan wasn't after excitement or mischief. He had fallen into a dark hole of entitlement, resentment, and greed. He believed he deserved the house. He believed I wasn't using my life properly. He believed he would do better if everything belonged to him. He said, "I thought if he broke down, it would make things easier. For both of us." I listened. Quiet. Still. The therapist recommended long-term counseling for him and boundaries for me. Strong boundaries. So I set them. Ethan moved out the next week. Not angrily, not dramatically, just quietly, with his bags packed and his eyes lowered. I told him he could come home for dinner anytime, but he would not live under my roof until he earned back trust. He nodded, accepting the consequences of his own choices. The house felt different once he left. Lighter. Quieter. Peaceful. I hadn't realized how much tension I'd been carrying until the rooms finally stopped shifting behind my back. I repaired what he damaged emotionally, slowly, like fixing an old piece of woodwork. One patient stroke at a time. Months passed. Ethan attended therapy. He called occasionally, each time with a more genuine tone. He apologized more than once, not just for what he did, but for who he had allowed himself to become. And I forgave him. Not because he deserved it immediately, but because forgiveness frees the heart of the one who gives it. But forgiveness doesn't mean blindness. Trust had to be rebuilt, carefully, quietly. And I made sure he understood that. Looking back now, I don't feel anger. I don't feel bitterness. I feel wiser. Sometimes the people we raise grow into strangers we never expected. Sometimes the ones we trust the most test us in ways we never imagined. But even then, we have a choice. We can scream. We can accuse. We can explode. Or we can breathe. Watch. Understand. And act with clarity instead of chaos. If I had confronted Ethan early on, he would have denied everything. If I had shouted or fought back, it would have turned into a storm neither of us could control. But staying calm gave me the advantage. Silence let the truth rise on its own. And patience gave me the space to act with wisdom instead of pain. Today, Ethan and I have a relationship built not on fear or control, but on honesty. He knows I will always help him, but I will never allow manipulation to live under my roof again. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't punishment. It's letting a person face their own reflection, their own actions, their own truth. That's what saved our relationship. And in a strange way, that's what saved me too.